They say America runs on dreams. I say it runs on a very fine con. The mark is everyone, and the dealer's smile is wide enough to call it a virtue. I've seen many a riverboat shark deal a man his own hopes and call it fair play, but America outdid them all. It sold every fool the same winning ticket, and every ticket said tomorrow. I should introduce myself before I spoil the ending. I'm Mark Twain, author of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, two tales about boys learning that the world's rules are usually written by the wrong people. I spent my life watching America grow rich in pocket and poor in principle. I wrote and lectured across this country and crossed the Atlantic more times than I can count, always chasing one kind of foolishness or another. So if I sound bitter, don't worry. I earned it honest, same as any other American. I've just come back to visit for a spell, and it seems the jokes haven't changed, only the price of admission. Oh, the dream, the finest sales pitch ever written. Every man told he's a someday millionaire, just briefly detained at the poverty depot. They hand him a shovel and call him an investor in the future. They tell him, work hard, stay honest, and the world will reward you. And while he works and stays honest, someone else rewrites the rules. Meanwhile, the rich grow holier by the headline, and the poor keep praying to join their church of success. The richest men in this country didn't just build fortunes, they built faiths. They turned the gospel of greed into scripture. They found it useful to teach that wealth is proof of virtue and poverty is proof of failure. And so the farmer, the machinist, the teacher, even the beggar, all nodded in awe of wealth and blamed themselves for the audacity of being born without it. That's the real American religion, confession without salvation. A man will vote to cut a billionaire's taxes because he's been taught to love his imagined future self more than his starving present. He'll pick the pockets of his own tomorrow in the name of hope. He'll call it freedom while fastening the chains himself and polishing the lock. That's what I call patriotic servitude, and I've seen enough of it to last 13 lifetimes. We call this capitalism, and if you strip the gilding off, it's just the oldest pyramid scheme that ever paid dividends. Don't mistake me. I don't hate enterprise. I hate fraud dressed in fine principles. The engine of ambition is a magnificent creation, so long as it carries people forward instead of grinding them underneath. But when an economy pays more to those who move money than to those who move mountains, something's off in the ledger. Now, some folks think the cure is to torch the whole house, replace private life with public ownership, and put the same few clever hands in charge of every biscuit and idea. They rename compulsion equality, but it smells the same. That path breaks the spirit that builds. A society without ownership is a field without roots. But the answer isn't worshiping wealth either. The trick is the balance, honest math instead of enchanted accounting. We can keep the gears of capitalism, provided they grind for everyone, not just for the boardroom. Call it social capitalism, if you like, or call it plain decency with a calculator. It's capitalism with its teeth filed and its heart installed. It lets enterprise live, but insists that society eats too. No, it's not socialism. Socialism abolishes property. Social capitalism asks property to behave. Socialism pulls everyone to the same rung. Social capitalism rebuilds the ladder and nails it down. Capitalism says every man for himself. Social capitalism replies, not if you want civilization to last the winter. In this order of things, success isn't strangled, it's civilized. The purpose of profit is no longer accumulation, but contribution. The ledger must match the moral arithmetic. What you take must measure up to what you give. Education, health care, a fair wage, and justice. These are not acts of charity. They are the price of admission to a functioning nation. If that sounds sentimental, remember, arithmetic doesn't weep. It balances. When the books are honest, everyone knows what he's paying for and why. The worker gains dignity, the inventor gains reward, and the country gains something rare. Faith that the game isn't fixed. You can see glimpses of such arithmetic in the nations that figured it out. Places where ambition still breathes, but predation's kept on a leash. where taxes aren't punishments but maintenance fees for civilization. Those societies aren't weak for sharing. They're strong because they refuse to eat their seed corn. I've seen this lesson before. In my time, I watched fortunes made on railroads that wouldn't have run a mile without the sweat of 10,000 laborers. I spoke to miners who dug wealth for men they'd never meet. I toured Europe telling jokes about kings and came home to find we'd crowned our own with stock certificates instead of scepters. So don't tell me this is new. It's just a modern mask on an ancient grin. The con was clever precisely because it wrapped its crime in virtue. It told the rich they were chosen by providence and the poor they were being tested by fate. It made inequality poetic. But poetry doesn't balance checkbooks. You can't buy bread with maybe someday. If you keep teaching a man that his misfortune is proof of his laziness, he'll eventually call starvation a character lesson. And once you convince him that punishment is moral, you can stop paying him altogether. That's the magic of the American dream. It turns exploitation into self-discipline. You might say I'm cynical. Perhaps. But I prefer to think of it as literacy. I can read the ledger. I can see the trick. A fair system would reward both the mind that invents and the hands that build. It would honor invention without idolizing inheritance. It would let the bold prosper, but would never let prosperity purchase power over the rest. This balanced order would feel to most folks like morality rediscovered. It wouldn't crush capitalism, it would clean it. Wash off the illusion that greed is motive enough to steward a nation. Call it rational arithmetic, call it civic decency, call it what you please. I call it common sense with boots on. America can have that balance if it wants it badly enough. But first, the spell must break. People must see the dream for what it is, a story told to keep them quiet while someone else writes the ending. Dreams are meant to wake us, not chain us. The moral, if you need one, is simple. The joke's only funny until you realize you're the punchline. The con ends when we stop betting on a billionaire's tomorrow and start building a worker's today. Then maybe this great republic will finally grow up, trading fantasy for fairness, superstition for sense, and fraud for the one thing no banker can counterfeit, justice paid in full. Well, my visit's about done. The steamboat's whistling, and I reckon I've said enough to get myself censored in 3 counties, but it was a pleasure to stretch my tongue again among thinking folk. If you found a spark of sense or a pinch of mischief worth keeping, tip your hat by subscribing to this channel, a most excellent adventure, which it truly is, liking or whatever it is you do in this electric century. I'm Mark Twain. Thanks for listening. And mind you, question every con, even the one that calls itself a dream.